the elders of the community and their descendants. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of the Yass Valley. Amen. Thank you, councillors. Do we have any apologies? We don't. No apologies. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Burgess.
Mr Mayor, 6.7 Back Creek Road. I live on Back Creek Road, non-pecuniary, less than significant interest, and I remain in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess.
Just for item 6.3, I have a non-pecuniary, less than significant interest in that item, but I will leave the room for that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
I have a pecuniary interest, not a pecuniary interest, an interest in 6.3. The proposed is actually a trustee of my estate.
Councillor
In
Campbell.
regard to 8.1 and 8.2, non-pecuniary interest and a lesser interest in the being the immediate past president of Yass and District Historical Society. But as I told council before, I am no longer a member of the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Okay, we'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes were circulated. Does someone like to move confirmation? Councillor Jones, Councillor Abbey. Question, Councillor?
Yeah, just in regard to the minutes, I was having a look at 10.1, the tender for the roof modifications and replacement of roof sheeting, Yass Soldiers Memorial Hall. In item 2 down there, it's resolved that item 1 and 2 are supposed to add up to $733,842.50. My arithmetic has never been great, but there's $100,000 missing there. So it's either a typo or somebody can't add up. I hope I'm wrong. Thank you.
You're certainly right about the calculation.
Thank you.
Prepared to vote? All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Nil minute, nil. Reports to council, 6.1.
I'll move that one.
Councillor Jones, do we have a seconder? Councillor Potham, any questions? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.2. Variations to development standards, quarterly report. There's a recommendation. Councillor Turner. Councillor Reid. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.3. Development consent DA 175305.
Just keep it going for 2 minutes because I'm going to go to the bathroom. Just joking.
Happy.
Moved Councillor Abbey, seconded Councillor Reid. Any discussion?
Yeah, if I could just make a comment in relation to 6.3. I note that similar arrangements with the deferment of payment as done on previous occasions, such as the Riverview Estate. It doesn't read to me that we're creating a new precedent, so I certainly support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just seek some guidance from our director. In terms of the issues that you're concerned about, is there any chance that we, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can ask the director, is there any chance that we can't get the money back? Or is this just an administrative step that is common in terms of like spreading out the payments? Is there any chance that we don't get the money back?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll just comment generally on voluntary planning agreements they're provided for within the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, and they are legally enforced, or enforceable, I should say.
Pretty straightforward. Okay. I'll put the motion in. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried.
I just go get the other.
2 minutes is up.
That's why we didn't send you to.
That's what we spoke.
Item 6.4. Modification, development consent, 3 lots, village subdivision. Heard the Mr McGaffin for his presentation earlier. Any discussion? Someone like to move the motion? Councillor Cameron?
None.
Okay.
Discussion.
Councillor Reid? Move.
I'll move it.
Councillor Jones?
Okay, through you, Mr Mayor. I'm just sort of, I was very interested in his comments about the supply of electricity and that it not being mandated that it had to be, obviously this regulation was done some time ago, but off the grid wasn't sort of ruled out per se. Is that correct, Director?
So clause 0.68 of the LEP has been in existence for some time, and it specifies that there has to be supply of electricity, and council has a policy that supports how that is implemented. In this particular zone, they have to have mains electricity to the property.
At this stage?
This particular moment in time, the policy says if you're in the R5 zone, you must have mains electricity.
I'm just reading here from the comments, it's acknowledged that alternative off-grid arrangements are becoming increasingly desirable with technology improving to facilitate this. And I could see that in future times, and maybe not that far off, that people could be looking at batteries that would complement or even you don't have to use the grid at all in small locations within a village. So that wouldn't be allowed under the LEP at the moment.
Under the council's current policy, if you're in the R5 zone, you must be connected to mains electricity if you're subdividing.
Okay, and the LEP, when's that up for renew?
Well, we're doing an administrative amendment at the moment, but we're not looking at reviewing this clause. This is a mandated clause from the state government. I will comment, the solar type aspects of electricity supply, yes, they are becoming more common, but they're not mainstream. And the expectation is that if you buy a subdivided lot, it has a mains connection.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to point out this policy was last updated in 2018-19, specifically to ensure that subdivisions in residential, village and business zones be supplied with grid electricity connection. As a purchaser of a block, I would be astounded to have to front up a cost of 100K to bring in electricity. And even if I, did want to put solar on it, being able to feed back into the grid would be impossible without that kind of connection. So my question to our director is, if we deviate from this policy, the precedent that we set would be far-reaching, I would have thought, across Yass Valley.
Through you, Mr Mayor. My main concern is around the precedent. The connection of electricity is expensive, but it's part of subdivision. People have an expectation that a lot will be connected to electricity if it's been recently created. So I think that the expectation is reasonable.
Councillor Reid?
Yes, as mover of the motion, I agree with the motion as it is, because I think we need to enforce the policy that we have in place. I was wondering though, from the comment that was made, that there seems to be an issue with payment up front for the electricity. Is it possible we could have some kind of a voluntary agreement that says the land cannot be purchased or could be purchased so long as the owner, the new owner knows exactly what the situation is and is prepared to help them work out that cost.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's the arrangement that's been put forward by the applicant's representative. Again, my preference and my advice to council is that we follow the policy that we have in place, because those lots cannot be created until such time as a subdivision certificate is released, and you must have the servicing in place to do that.
Thank you.
All done? I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? No one? I'll declare the motion carried. 6-5, BA 220241. Barn in Ambleside Road. There is a recommendation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to recommendation to refuse.
Have a seconder, councillor Python. Any discussion? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That motion carried. 6-6, BA 220242, existing workshop. Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner, Councillor Reid.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I have a foreshadowed motion to defer.
Okay, do we have a seconder? You don't need a seconder. Okay. All right.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I can speak to
Yes.
the foreshadowed motion. It states
Sorry,
clearly.
Mr Mayor, no, you've got to speak to the motion.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Jumping the gun.
He did give me a nod, I was thinking. I don't take so unlike the foreshadowed motion, the current recommendation stated in the business paper won't allow us to give the council officers time to bring back the information. As stated in the recommendation, insufficient information has been provided to council to characterise the development for the purposes of the Yass Valley LEP in 2013. I'd like our staff to give them the opportunity to do so. So that's why I'll be voting against this recommendation, to allow us that assurity of information to make a valued judgment on it.
So you're seeking to defer any action?
Speaking to the motion that we're talking about, I'll be voting against this motion and opting for the deferred motion of deferring this decision until we've given our staff the opportunity to go back and have another look.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Speakers for the motion? Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst I applaud the enthusiasm of the Deputy Mayor in deferring this, I think the matter's gone on quite long enough. And deferring it for any length of time is not going to change the current situation. Any information that could have been provided, should have been provided, would have been provided, should be on the table by now. And as far as I'm concerned, this is someone who is flaunting the uses of the buildings at Ambleside. And I would suggest that this motion is exactly as it is ordered. And I have had a policy over the years of never voting against a staff recommendation unless there was very valid reason for it. I don't believe there's any valid reason for voting against this.
Thank you, councillor Turner.
Through you, Mr Mayor, may I ask a question of the Director? Given the circumstances of the information collected on the first visit, do you feel you have sufficient or would you prefer another visit to this location?
Through you, Mr Mayor. I think I need to clarify for the council that the applicant made a submission of information on the 17th of February. This is after a significant amount of time of requesting this information to be put before the council. my feeling, without referencing back to the staff, is I don't think that we would need to do another inspection of the workshop upon receipt of this information. We could proceed and finalise the assessment, because I think we've got a pretty clear picture of what is inside that building.
So just confirming that you don't have the current information to finalise the assessment as it stands now, but or at the time of writing this, but you do now, so if we defer, we
So,
can see the full picture.
At the time of writing, they had said that the use was the hobby use. When we carried out the site inspection related to the development application, the equipment that is inside the shed caused us to go back to the applicant to ask them to either affirm that that's what they were going to use the shed for, which was a hobby, or whether it was going to be used for something else. They came back on the 17th of February and said that, confirmed that it is to be used as a workshop, art studio, hobby type use.
Further speakers against the motion? No motion? All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Jones, Councillor Cameron. Declare the motion carried. 6-7, fixing local roads. Round 4. There is a recommendation. We have a mover. Councillor Abbey and Councillor Turner. Thank you. Any discussion, any comments? Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor, just to simply state that $3 million I'll gladly accept and a worthy contribution from our development contribution towards this project. And as soon as we can get this area fixed, I think we'll have a lot of happy residents.
Hope so.
For sure.
Okay, prepared to vote? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried unanimously. 6-8, the draft South East Tablelands Regional Transport Plan. There is a recommendation. I want to move. Councillor Abbey, Councillor Reid. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron. Sorry,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just welcome this report, which I think is due in tomorrow, isn't it, I believe? So it's great to see a piece of work that's a submission that really hits the mark quite well. I'd like to just point out that it incorporates significant work that was completed by the Sustainability Advisory Committee, some of the major points at the start, which I think is excellent. And there's also excellent comments on traffic throughout the LGA, which I think gives us a lot of insight into what's going on in regard to traffic. However, there's one point that I'd just like to talk about. There seems to be one sentence that worries me, and the sentence is further down. It says growth in, and they're talking about Murrumbateman. Growth in Murrumbateman is contingent upon resolving infrastructure issues like water supply, which has already been resolved. I find that a really amazing sort of sentence, because I think we've been led to believe so far that there are still negotiations going on. And in Monday's Canberra Times, I'll just read out, if you don't mind, the following two paragraphs. The Parkwood land is within the Yass Valley Council, and the council could push the ACT government to agree to build a water pipeline to Murrumbateman to offset rates revenue from the land. The next paragraph's the interesting one. The spokeswoman said the New South Wales government had not raised this proposal at all with the ACT government. So the question is, where are we with the pipeline, which is our plan A for.
I'll ask the
Thank you,
Chief
Mr. Mayor.
Executive Officer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The council's position is that if the Parkwood development on the New South Wales side is to move into the ACT, that council has sought a legacy project for a water pipeline from Canberra to facilitate the growth in Murrum Bateman. We cannot grow Murrum Bateman at the present time with the water we have. It's only available for about 1,000 lots all up. That means that we won't be able to expand as per our settlement strategy to the North Murrum Bateman area. So that was our council position at this stage. We are the water authority for Yass Valley, not the state government regulators, but we are the water authority. So we are the ones that are negotiating with the ACT government. The ACT government at the moment, while are supportive of moving the border, have indicated that they do not want to cloud that issue with the pipeline, but have separate discussions about the pipeline. So there's no commitment from the ACT government to support a pipeline at this point in time, but certainly they have not said that they would not consider it. In fact, I was at a meeting last week of which the New South Wales water policy people, the ACT water policy people, Queanbeyan Powerang and I represented council to talk about how interjurisdictional water trading could occur to support development in places like Bungendore and in Murrum Bateman. So discussions are taking place, but they haven't reached any conclusion at this stage. No one's made a commitment to a pipeline, other than the fact that we have identified it as our preferred solution if we're to unlock the growth potential of Yass Valley.
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. Chris, what's our fallback? If we cannot get agreement with the ACT, do we have a plan B, such as water from the Barringer?
Well, through Mr. Mayor, the Barringer option was investigated previously and again, and the cost of operating that is quite cost prohibitive because of the terrain, the need for extra pumping, whereas the ACT water is more of a gravitational flow, which is certainly far more cost effective. So that's our position at the present time. As I say, I'm confident that we will be able to negotiate something with the ACT government on our preferred option. There are some hoops that we have to jump through, for instance, to trade between the ACT and New South Wales. There is a piece of Commonwealth legislation that we need to amend to include Yass Valley. It's already in place for Queanbeyan City. So we need to have a Commonwealth agreement to change that legislation. And we also need the support of the state and the territory to the changes for that legislation to enable that infrastructure to be built and for the cross-border trading to take place.
Mr. Chairman. Councillor Abbey.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, and my question is to the CEO. With the New South Wales, with formulation of this report, this draft transport plan, did they at any stage seek any information from Yass Valley? Right.
Yeah, they have, through Mr. Mayor. They prepare a draft plan, usually as part of the preparation they engage with staff for input. They come up with a plan and then we have a further opportunity both as staff and council to review the plan and what's been put before us. And as per the report, there's a number of shortcomings with the plan.
So I was just wondering how come the population estimates are such an underestimate? Why that figure's so
Well, this is like, how long's a piece of string? The demographers make projections about population based on different assumptions. So it's quite possible, well, in our experience, the projections in New South Wales are based on largely what's happened in the past. What we've tried to do through our settlement strategy was to say, okay, yes, we know what's happened in the past and it's been very constant, about 1%, 2% growth per annum per year, very consistently. But if you do things like duplicate the Barton Highway, solve the water problem, is that going to be a stimulus to a spike in growth? And we've suggested that that probably would happen, and therefore we've been a bit more optimistic about our projections at the local level. So that's part of the reason for the differences. The other thing too is that we've tried to look at a longer time frame, 50 years plus, whereas the state government, I think, are only going to about 2042. So there are some differences between the different demographers and what we know on their ground. I kind of like the information that we've got because we're a bit closer to the action and knowing what's happening in our backyard.
Councillor Cameron.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a follow-up question in regard to what the issue that you raised. It would seem to me to be pretty important if we could get the New South Wales government on side. I wonder whether our need for this particular pipeline has been expressed to our friends who are running for office at the current state election. I wonder if they have been told that this is essential for us.
Yes, in fact, Council asked us to update our advocacy paper a few meetings back, and certainly the candidates that are known at the moment have received a copy of that advocacy piece. And the key thing there is, or one of the key projects in there is resolving the water problems to match our growth here.
Just to follow up, have they expressed any interest back to us about supporting us on the pipeline?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
We never know. I think there's another meeting tomorrow that is talking about announcements. I don't know.
All right, thank you.
We'll wait and see. Maybe that's a question to put to them tomorrow. Someone tomorrow.
Through Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jones, yes.
Look, in support of this recommendation, I would like to acknowledge the work of our staff on this report. It was a pleasure to open it up and go, job done.
Yeah.
Really well done. They've found so many holes across so many aspects of this plan, and noting it's a draft, and I really hope that all of this commentary is accepted and a more robust transport plan for the region comes about. It's no shock to see a state level report underestimate our population, where that's nothing new for us, is it?
No, definitely.
Whether it be health or education, somehow the fact that there's a cross-border massive population just doesn't seem to register at times with our state government. However, to say that we'd be at, I think it was 21,000 by 2041, that's not the truth. That's not the truth we know on the ground here. I mean, we're projecting approximately 27,000 by 2036. And I think that's conservative in terms of the potential of places like Murray Bateman. The gaps in this report that the staff have found includes things that would shock people to understand that Yass has not been identified, as a regional centre, when we certainly have villages all surrounding us. We're midway between Melbourne and Sydney. The highway centre tells you how strategic Yass is. To not even acknowledge that we have a beautiful Yass Valley wine industry here, and the importance of transport for our visitor economy is a bit shocking. And to note that we have a Main Street master plan for Yass, and this should be acknowledged. We are cross-border. 50% of our population goes across the border every day. For that not to be in a transport plan that is at a regional level has to change. And mentioning something like the duplication of the Barton Highway in this plan would be good. So there's a few gaps there, and congratulations to staff on that report.
Thank you, councillor Jones. Everyone happy now? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.9, water source strategy. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Potham, Councillor Reid, thank you. Any discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, question for our CEO. Noting part 2 of this, that council staff will continue to work with DPE Water, where have I heard that before, on a review of the water security assessment for Yass as one of the case studies to inform the regional modelling assessments. What opportunity do you see there if we are one of those case studies?
Well, the key problem with the discussion papers that have been released is that the modelling done at the regional level suggests that Yass Valley doesn't have a water source problem. Our own water strategy indicated that we, when you factor in climate change, that and the level of growth anticipated for the LGA, that we will not be able to use our own water supplies that we have at the moment, which is largely off the Yass River, is just not going to be sufficient to support water growth. So the modelling that's been done by the department says that basically you've got no problems. You've had some issues with your water, but you really don't have a problem. And it's interesting that the regional office that we deal with in the Department of Planning water section have supported our strategy and the findings of that, and are also concerned that has not been adequately reflected in the regional planning documentation. So one of the things that we've been negotiating with them is to say, well, look, we think you need to drill down on some of the key settlements around in the Murrumbidgee regional water strategy to just have a look at what the issues are in more detail. And I think if they did that, they would find that there are some particular issues that the valley is facing that are quite unique to us. And that's why we've indicated in that part 2 that we will continue to work with Office of Water on that. We've already raised it verbally with them at various workshops and forums that we've held. But this is about reinforcing that position as part of a submission to the work that they've done. And hopefully they'll adjust their documentation accordingly before they finalise everything.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, follow-on question. Would it be fair to say that if we don't get that secondary source of water in, preferably from the the plans for example, Murrumbidgee, building that to a district of 10,000, if we had to fall back on rural res, would we get past 5,000 as a district? Or not even here?
No, probably not. I think that would be a complete game changer. The whole premises of accommodating the growth was on another water supply. The logical water supply, we've now confirmed that would be the best option is from Canberra at this stage on a range of different criteria. If we weren't successful with that, if the answer was no, that'd be a game changer where you'd have to go back and have a look at your strategies and say, okay, what now? You can't just get more water. It's not going to rain anymore. We haven't got the storage capacity or the infrastructure to be able to support it. So yeah, you would need to go back and rethink your settlement strategy, which would be frustrating in a large extent because everyone to date has recognised that we do play a major role in growth coming out of Canberra. And if we're to accommodate that growth, I think we've got a really good, sound strategy to be able to do that. But we do know that the growth doesn't occur unless you have the right infrastructure in place. And water is critical. If we don't get water, we don't get the development.
All that long ago that we had a moratorium on growth in Yass Township because we couldn't supply the water. I think we limited the growth to 20 houses a year, I think.
Through Mr. Mayor, that's right. I mean, the difficulty there is that if that drought had continued for any length of time, you might have had to have gone back and looked at your zoning and saying, well, we can't actually, this area may have been zoned for residential, but guess what, we can't. So we're going to have to rethink what we do with that land. Fortunately, that hasn't had to happen because, our water supply is a bit more secure now that we've raised the dam wall. So, yeah, I think if there's key infrastructure needed to support growth and it can't be delivered or isn't delivered, you then have to rethink your strategies. Not there yet.
Councillor Pop.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick question for the CEO. Speaking in support of this recommendation, can you just explain to me how it starts is the analysis undertaken through a secure yield analysis. Can you just explain what that is? Sometimes I read these terms and I'm like, what does that mean? Do they get a jar of water out of the dam? What? Can you just explain so we know?
Secure yield is based on modelling your rainfall patterns, your runoff patterns, and just how much water goes into your storage facility that's available for use by the town. So we are licensed to extract from the Yass River a certain amount of water for our needs. If we grow, we need to make sure that we can still extract water that meets our needs and provides us with water security. So that's what they talk about. So in long dry periods, that secure yield might be having to reduce demand, so water restrictions. When we've got abundance of water, we can move off restrictions, and we can probably add some more development to use that water. But it's about looking at the peaks and troughs in the climate, and making sure that there is a secure yield of water to produce for each of the households that are in our towns that receive reticulated water services, which in our case is Yass, part of Murrum Bateman and Bounningham.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, everyone happy? Prepare to vote? Yes? All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. We go to 610, Yass Water Treatment Plant update. There's a recommendation. Councillor Turner, Councillor Abbey. Thank you, councillors. Any questions? Any comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to have the CEO confirm that we have still been asked to wait on stage 1 and that all of the projects proposed for stage 1A still don't address our water quality or water security.
Through Mr. Mayor, stage 1's effectively completed. The Department of Planning and Environment's water section have indicated that they would like to, or directed is basically not to do any further work until such time as they've had a 12-month monitoring period to see what the quality of the water is. They are confident that what's been put in place will address our water quality problems. Our peer review reports that we had commissioned paint a very different story. They've concluded that will not happen. So we're stuck at the moment. We can't get any of the residual funding left over from the $10 million to be able to do stages 2 and or 3. What has happened in recent days is that we've had some discussions with the funding body, and the Department of Planning's water section. They have indicated that there will be, or some components that they will permit to go forward under what I think we're calling notionally stage 1A. They are things like dealing with some of the WHS issues, the chemical storage arrangements, and some of the electrical works in there. None of those things contribute to water quality. They contribute to better operation of the plant. So they're not water quality works. They're plant upgrade works to make it a safer place to work, in effect. The funding body basically said, we're not really happy with this incremental approach to the upgrade. They want to see a business case for the whole project, regardless of what the price is. They want to see the business case for all of the upgrades. They recognise that if that is greater than what's already been put aside, which it is, that will be a trigger for them to think about how do we secure in future state budgets going forward. How do we make sure that we can actually assist council in delivering on stages, in effect, stages two and 3. So we've got an agreement to do that work, and that we're commissioning some consultants to do that for us. The funding body has also said that once we have that, we are prepared to look at stage 1A. Using the funds that are already allocated, that balance of the $10 million. So they're quite comfortable with that, subject to the business case. That seemed to have been reinforced by the Premier yesterday in Goulburn, who indicated that they will continue to work with council on developing the business case for the whole plan. So I think that's a little bit different to the press release that we saw a bit earlier in the week. That was certainly a much more conciliatory approach to what our position is. So yeah, look, things have moved on quickly from when this report was drafted. The good news out of that is that the funding body wants us to do a business case for the total project. They will consider stage 1A to get the safety arrangements sorted out, and then we'll turn their attention with us to how do we finance the future stages and when.
Just one clarifying question. That none of that allows, we haven't got a green light yet for stage 2, which is the new treatment plant, which will address the issues that we have been facing just as frequently as late last year, which was, for example, in August 2022, October 2022, staff had to shut off for periods the water treatment plant, and it was incapable of treating incoming raw water. Treated water storage was also depleted to critical levels, that's the 5 hours, where water could not be treated. Even after stage 1 upgrade works, risk of failure to comply with drinking water guidelines and a potential boil water alert.
Yep.
So none of the stage 1 or the stage 1A proposed will address that, and we haven't got a green light for the funding of stage 2 yet.
No, the treatment of water at the moment is more of an art form than a science.
Yes.
It requires people to manually adjust things and to get the water quality right. If the quality of water coming into the dam is high in nutrient loads, organic matters and all of that, it does cause them significant problems at the plant. And there are times when we've had to shut the production down while we give it some time to clear, and then we can start producing again. So probably a bit of good management by our operators in terms of being able to minimise the impact, but we have got into a couple of situations where it's been pretty critical, and we have been on that verge of a boiled water alert for the town. Yeah.
The quality of the water fluctuates in the dam, as we know, every time there's a bit of rain. Heavy rain.
And that's certainly so long dry periods and high input to, you know, like we've had recently, all change the nature of the water. The bubble plume aerator is supposed to de-stratify the water to try and make sure that we've got a more uniform product that we can draw down on. Whereas where we don't have that, if we didn't have that bubble plume aerator, we'd have a stratification, and we'd have to be careful about where we're drawing the water from or from what depth of the water. So the idea is to mix it all up so it's a bit more uniform.
Before, gentlemen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add that I was just blown away when we did a tour of the water treatment plant earlier last year at just the condition it is, the age of all sorts of stuff, chemical storage and all that sort of stuff, and just to see like the guys who work there are magicians. Just what they do in working in really old infrastructure and stuff, and just that they manage to, most people don't know this, they just walk up to the tap and go, oh yeah, just get some water, but they don't see what goes on behind the scenes, and it just completely blew my hair off that the effort and the stuff, and particularly with those 2 flood events we had last year, what these guys are doing on the ground is just unbelievable. The extra hours, they're there at night, they're there at weekends, just to make sure that we can walk up to the tap and turn on the water. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the staff who manage that plant, because it's a very complicated process, just even from listening to what you're talking about today, but even that trip we did through it last year was just a real exercise in seeing what people do every day behind the scenes is just amazing. So just take my hat off to the staff.
Thanks, councillor. I think it's really miraculous what's achieved because of the rubbish that comes in sometimes, and we still get clear water. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, follow-up question to the Chief Executive Officer. I wasn't sure whether I heard you right there. Did you say that the Premier suggested that they were going to help with the business case? And my follow-up question is the business case going to be our sort of baby to look after, and will it take 9 months to do?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We're the ones that have to prepare the business case.
Okay.
So that's why we're commissioning somebody to actually do that for stage 2 and 3, so for the total plan. The government play a quality assurance role. They basically review the documentation, and they either agree with elements or seek some adjustments to it. So that's how it works. The comments from the Premier yesterday, as I understand it from listening to the radio this morning on my way down here, was that the government will and the government agencies will work closely with council to develop that business plan up. How long is it going to take? I haven't got the timeframe on that. We're waiting on what the consultant can deliver, and that will certainly set our timeframes. But again, what the funding body said was we don't need a business case for each stage. We'd rather have one business case, and we see how each stage fits into that business case. So, which I thought was a good approach from the funding body, but it would have been nice to know that right from day one, rather than just doing a business case for stage 1 and then having to do business cases for the next stages. So, I think we're getting it back on track. So yeah, look, I mean, we will hold the politicians to their promises. If they say they're going to help us and assist us, great. We'll like to see what that assistance is, and if it means them telling their public servants that they need to work cooperatively with us, well, that's great. I mean, we do try to work with all our government the staff in all the government agencies to deliver projects for the community. Sometimes we get frustrated like this one when there is a difference, well, in this case a philosophical difference of opinion on what's needed for the plant.
Happy to vote? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. We go on to 611, material recycling facility in Canberra. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Reid. Councillor Potter, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd just like to, as the member of the motion, through Mr Mayor to the CEO. I take it in the motion, and that's why I moved it, that we will still continue to look for price competitive solutions, but at the moment we're sort of between a rock and a hard place. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, we are between a rock and a hard place at the moment. The challenge for us is to, and this is being done by the 6 councils and the Canberra Region Joint Organisation, is to explore whether there's any capacity to take recycled material in some of the more regional operations such as Wagga and Cootamundra. The initial discussions haven't been particularly fruitful at this particular point in time, but that might change. The JO is also, on behalf of the 6 councils involved, is talking to the EPA to see if we can actually get perhaps some state-funded assistance for all of the councils across the region to cover the increased costs of transporting material to Sydney and to Melbourne, where there is capacity in the facilities that they have there. So we need to explore all of those opportunities, but if none of them come through, we've got to have a plan B, and unfortunately, we've had a significant increase in the charge, effectively, basically from the start of this month, that we have to pay to Regroup in Canberra, who run the MRF over there, the materials facility, whereby they now transport that in bulk to Melbourne and Sydney. So that's where the cost increase has gone. So that obviously will have implications for us and our waste services if we don't find alternate facilities with capacity, or if we don't get some financial assistance to assist us through this. It's about a 2-year period that we're looking at this stage.
Councillor Cameron.
All right, a couple of questions, why not? Question, it's obvious that there's going to be increased costs for waste disposal. I know this may be asking too much. Any idea what that might be for the average ratepayer, if there's such a thing? I'm probably thinking, can you sort of quantify if there's no sort of help from a government agency? You know, is it going to be 10% increase, 50% increase, 100% increase? So that's the first question.
We're certainly looking at that, the implications of that. It's a significant increase from my memory. I think we pay about 100,000 a year, and we're talking about up to 300,000 a year. So there's a significant increase in the cost to us that has to be distributed as best we can. But if we can get some financial assistance, say through the state government, that would be a different price increase. So that's why we're exploring all these other opportunities.
The second question is, what is the current cost of landfill at the moment? I think there was a figure that was it 300 and something? Or?
I have to take that on notice. I don't.
Okay, the reason why I asked that is, in order to minimise landfill, which is going to be a bigger cost in the future, is council planning to do anything to reduce the cost in terms of information and education, green waste bins, for example, and maybe even going to FOGO, which the Sustainability Committee is always looking at. Thank you.
The short answer is we're looking at all of those. The regional waste strategy has just been released. I think later on in the report tonight, we're suggesting that, or we have suggested previously that the Sustainability Committee have a look at that report and see where the priorities are and where they could, or suggestions for help in there. It's certainly, we're obviously as staff very interested in the regional approach, because if we do have a FOGO or a green waste collection, we need to understand what that looks like and where we can actually send the material to. We have done some estimates. We don't generate enough on our own to make something like a viable composting facility in return. There are composting facilities within the region, and again, it could be that let's have a look at those where they can aggregate compost from a number of councils, and those facilities have already been approved. To run a composting facility in Yass Valley, we'd have to first thing, we have to get an EIS. It's that type of development that we would get. And so, again, you're probably looking at several years' worth of paperwork before you even get the facility on the ground. So, and you need to be able to have that money at hand to be able to do that if that's what the path you want to go down. I think at this stage we'd be looking at, if we were introducing those green waste type of collection arrangements, is looking at transferring it to an existing composting facility so that it's aggregated up with others to make that facility a much more viable. So Canberra and Woodlawn, I think, about the closest options.
Councillor Potter.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, on a similar thing to what Councillor Cameron was talking about, my comment is like, obviously we pay per tonne when we take this stuff to these places. So if you're looking at the cost increases, which are considerable, then are there other ways we can look at this? I know myself, there's lots of initiatives by the government with Waste to Art. There's grants and funding and stuff to get artists to make stuff with stuff that would normally go to the tip. I know a lot of the other council areas have already jumped on that and grabbed pockets of money. They do it once a year. So that's one opportunity that perhaps the Public Art Committee could look at some of those grants, and doing some stuff in school holidays around education and reusing. I know myself, I got an email, except I've forgotten the name of it, but there's grants available for businesses to reduce their waste, and obviously businesses go through quite a lot of, I know myself as a cafe, I go through a lot of 2 litre milk cartons and all sorts of things which aren't great. I know for myself, I've got some great tips on crushing them and reducing them, but perhaps not everybody knows that, and perhaps not other businesses don't know about the grants available in the reducing the bin sort of stuff. So maybe there's lots of other initiatives or community education, which Councillor Cameron was talking about, in educating people and encouraging people to reuse as much as recycle, reusing tins and all sorts of stuff, rinsing them out, using them as pen holders and whatever. I think perhaps if there was a bit more education around, it could just help reduce what we're actually just, because we're talking about packing the same amount of stuff that's costing us a lot of money, and why can't we look at maybe some other alternatives, or get the community involved, get the youth council involved on initiatives for youth, or initiatives with the school programs and stuff about different ways to recycle rather than just put it in the bin and reel it out the front, and people understanding what happens once it gets there, the costs involved and all sorts of stuff. Because I know for myself, when I read this, it was quite an eye-opener, particularly the costs. It's not just you think you're doing something good, you're like, yeah, I'm recycling, and you wheel your bin out the front and that's a feel-good thing. It's just at the end of the day, that sort of doesn't solve the problem really, does it? On just reusing plastic containers and buying stuff that's not in plastic containers and all that sort of stuff. So perhaps we could do better as education, or encouraging people, and that doesn't have to come from us, that can come, as I said, through perhaps other other community groups and stuff, or maybe we could run a competition or something, just to get the community excited about, maybe we run a competition on people making suggestions on how to make this different and how to reduce waste. So,
Councillor Potter. It would be wonderful if we could reduce the recycling at source rather than the packaging that goes on these days. It's incredible.
Quick question on budget, but before I do that, I'd like to see a video of how you crush a 2-litre milk carton. So I'm expecting that one
all right, done.
on Facebook evening.
Put your foot on it.
Yeah.
Where's the money?
I've done that just once. It wasn't So, question for our executive. So the implications for 2023 budget is approximately 107,000. So just a quick question on how we're going to claw that back, or what are we not going to do on account of that extra cost for this budget?
Through Mr. Mayor, one of the things that we're looking at, I mean, we're in a rock and a hard place at the moment. The cost is the cost. We have to pay it. So that will have to be, we have to look at budget variation as part of our quarterly reviews. So that's one thing that we can do. But the other issue is our next opportunity to look at our pricing for waste services is the next budget. So we will need to make sure that there's provision in the next budget for the increased costs. And as I said, it's likely to be a 2-year project before we get it up and running. And hopefully, because those costs come back down because they won't be transporting it as far, it'll be processed in Canberra. So there's an opportunity to actually look at the costs incurred in the next financial year. But then the issue is between now and the end of this financial year, does that mean to say we've got to recuperate that? And I think that's something that we've got to look at and bring back through the budget process to outline what's the best strategy from our perspective. I think it's going to be it is a difficult ask for us to find the extra money this year because we've got a lot of other commitments that we've already made. So that might impact on our budget position at the end of the financial year, but we have an opportunity in the next financial year to try and claw some of that back. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's the users of the system that will end up paying, which is, and that's why we're looking at these other opportunities to try and reduce that cost.
Pretty costly fire.
Yes.
Everyone happy? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion carried. 6.12, draft 21-22 financial statements. There's a recommendation. Someone like to move it? Councillor Turner, Councillor Reid. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Look, I really welcome this report because I think I would say it's long overdue, and I think it's great that it's finally turned up. And I know there have been internal issues that have caused some of the difficulties, I believe. I have concern about our finances, not because of reading through this document, but mainly because talking to some people at a conference that I was at on Monday, it was pointed out to me that 3 of our neighbouring councils, Queanbeyan and Palorang, Snowy Valley and Snowy Monaro, are all in financial difficulties and are looking at rate rises, special rate variations as they're called, in the order of 50 to 64%. And quite major over 3 years. And in actual fact, Queanbeyan and Palorang, that's not their worst option. They were looking at 90% increase, and because they went for the second option, they're still looking to cut $5 million out of the expenditure. So neighbouring councils are in difficulty. I was going to say something else. Difficulty is what we would say. And I hope that by looking through these financial draft documents, I hope that we're not in the same position. But a lot of councils are, and mainly because of the state government funding of local councils, which is far too low in regard to what's required. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah. Mr. Billy, would like a glass of water?
Probably something stupid in a glass of water, I think, but yeah, look, the problem with local government financing is not something that has just happened. It's been a cumulative impact for the last 40 to 50 years on local government. Federal assistance grants have been declining in real terms just about every single year. So we get less revenue through that area. We've got rate capping, which basically, if we get a rate increase, it's usually about 2.5% or less every year. The amount of money generated through the rates doesn't even cover the wage increases that we have as an organisation, and that's not just us. That's just about every council around the state. The only mechanism we have available at the present time is to go down the track of a special rate variation, and this council's actually done that in the past to try and get some increased funding through rates for specific projects. And the last one was rural bridges and rural roads. And we did focus on that, and we brought a large part of the network up to scratch, and then only to be hit last year with above average rainfall, which undid a lot of the work that was previously done. So we at the moment we're receiving natural disaster funding and other funding that the government's promised us to assist us with, which is all very welcome, but I don't think it solves the problem. It's just a bit of a sugar hit for to give it up to recovery, but it doesn't solve the long-term problem. And the reality is that local government isn't financed well enough by federal and state governments. They like to push things onto us, cost shifting as they call it. They don't see it as cost shifting. They see it as giving more accountability to government, local government to make its own way in the world, but they don't resource it. They just tell us we've got to do more things. The reality is that we don't. We have to start looking at services. Those other councils that have gone down the special rate variation path, I understand exactly why they've done it. It's they are finding it very difficult to manage the assets that they have to an acceptable standard with a shrinking income for those organisations. So that's why they've gone down that path. Will Yass Valley have to look at that? I would say you probably will have to look at that in the near future, because while we're going along okay, it's not solving the long-term problems. We're not reinvesting in our assets as well as we should be. We're well short of the amount of monies we need for that. So, local government has been advocating year in, year out for a different model of financing local government, but it falls on deaf ears. I think the last bit of advocacy that ALGA did, the Australian Local Government Association, was to say increase federal assistance grant by 1%. Now that's nowhere near where it used to be. I think we used to be about 6% of GDP for local government. That's whittled away to be below 4% these days, 3%. So 1% is all that we're asking, and that would make a difference. But we can't even get that across the line. So that means we fall back on the mechanisms that are available, and the only one we have at the present time is a special rate variation. And while we this year we did agonise about it at the executive team meeting about whether we should be looking at starting that process, because there is a fair bit of build-up that you have to do and engagement with communities. And we felt that no, we shouldn't do that this year, and certainly not after the back of the one that we did last time, which caused a lot of angst in the community. Do we want to go through that pain again? Will we get a change in federal and state policy in the short term? Probably not. That means we will have to look at a special rate variation probably in the near future. But when? That'll be a timing up to council. But there will come a time when I think we will have to look at it again.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to the CEO. Do I recall correctly the figure you quoted from a briefing, in the last few weeks, where you're saying historically funding for local government Australia-wide used to be about 6% of GDP, and now it's just 2%, is that?
So it's certainly declined in real terms over the years. So, when they say we'll give you, the pool of money's expanded, but by the time you take into account inflationary factors and other cost increase, it's actually in real terms it ends up being less. So it has declined. It's significantly declined, and you've got to remember that council looks after assets that no one else is interested in. Building roads is a public good, and councils are responsible for doing that. And if it's not adequately financed, you will have decline in your road network. And it's everybody wants good roads, especially the one in front of their place. But we can't. But we can't do it all, and this is the problem. You've got to have a long-term plan. And coupled with that, we've now got a skills resourcing issue. We've got a scarcity of engineers. We've got a scarcity of road construction workers, and we're not the only council. Everyone in the region is facing this. In fact, the JR are doing a joint organisation, are doing some work on this for a federal government inquiry about the state of financing our road assets in not only the region around the ACT, but really across Australia.
Councillor Turner, you're closest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by congratulating the crew in the very trying circumstances in getting these figures up. It's hard enough dealing with accountants who change accounting standards and therefore make just more work for people than is absolutely necessary. The black arts of accounting is notorious for creating extra work. I think you've done an amazing job considering the external exercises of auditors and everyone else. Congratulations in getting the figures right. I think Councillor Cameron said it all when he said that the councils with problems are Queanbeyan and Palarang, Goulburn Mulwari, Upper Lachlan. Yass Valley was a standalone council. It's remained standalone through the SRV. The government's attempt at rationalising costs by amalgamations has clearly not worked. And the residents of those are going to look at the SRV and say, look at those guys, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. We all hate our councils, but we hate to lose them too.
Through Mr. Mayor, one point I wanted to clarify when Councillor Cameron mentioned internal losses causing the delay. I wanted to point out and give the opportunity for the Director to speak on the issue of the 3 times extension from Deloitte and any plan forward or options that we have before us, or are we hamstrung into this process yet again?
Mr. Mayor. We are guided in our external audit by the Audit Office of New South Wales. They control who does our external audits, and we don't have no say in that. Deloitte's are finishing with local governments, local councils for the 2021 financial year, and we are waiting for a new external auditor to be awarded. It's out of our hands.
Okay, everyone happy now? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 613, investments and borrowing report. The recommendation. Councillor Reid, Councillor Potter, any discussion, any questions? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Declare the motion carried. 614, delivery program, 6-month progress report. Jones, Councillor Jones, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Just a quick question for first I want to say, given the loss of key director, I just want to commend our staff for soldiering on a lot of these projects. Not only that, we've lost strategic members of our planning team. So I would expect that some will have a pause next to them. But I think it's an opportunity for us to reassure the community that this is still an effective executive and effective council, and we're getting on with the job. And I wanted to give our CEO the opportunity to boast about any wins and any comments about projects that the community want to see progress, which do have a pause next to them.
Through Mr Mayor, look, it's certainly trying. The two directors and myself are sort of have taken sections of the infrastructure and assets division, and where those managers are reporting directly to us in those areas. So that's an extra workload on us. But things are ticking along okay. It's interesting that sometimes when you're directly responsible for an area, you start to ask questions and challenge some of the assumptions or the activities that people are doing to see if there's ways of doing things better, and that's one benefit of looking at things. I've become a little bit more personally, a little bit more familiar with some of the challenges in the roads area and the water area, and I'm sure that the other directors have also found some of the things that they're now looking at as challenging as well. But we seem to be going okay. Having said that, we are in the process of recruiting for a director. That will allow us to go back and do our normal work. But we did a shortlisting yesterday. We've got another. There'll be a first round of screening of possible candidates, and we're going to be meeting early next month about a short list to interview. So we are making some progress on that. I can tell you now we got 23 applications for the role. There's obviously some of those that are not up to scratch, but we certainly have a long short list at the moment. That will be shortened down a bit further before we interview, and we've got a secondary list as well in the event that none of the other candidates. So I'm quite pleased with that at the moment. It is a tough climate out there to recruit for senior technical staff and experienced staff, and we want to make sure that we get a good fit for the organisation. So that's what we're doing at the moment. But in the meantime, hopefully there's not been too much of a loss of service with the director not being here. Things are continuing to be delivered by the staff. We're certainly asking them to step up as well. The wheels haven't fallen off yet.
I think I might add something to that too, just a personal observation. When you're getting responses from your directors at 10 o'clock at night, emails at 10 o'clock at night and at weekends, you know that they're putting you in the hard times. Yesterday I came down to meet the CEO. I had an appointment at 1 o'clock and he was halfway through his lunch and he scoffed it. I don't know. I sincerely hope he didn't suffer from indigestion, but he was there at the desk working on the computer, eating lunch and dealing with me at the same time. So he's multi-skilled in that respect.
He was hungry.
That's what happens when you go without breakfast. Okay, everyone happy? Oh, Councillor Cameron?
Happy. I have some questions for the Director of Planning through you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 4 questions. The one that I continually come back to is the Development Control Plan, and it's been in draft form since 2018, and I think it's important that this gets done as soon as possible. When do you think this will be given to Council? And I know it's on the basic problem is the engineering report. And I suppose the other part of that question is, why not get extra staff to complete this work? Because it is important.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't give you a deadline as to when the DCP will be finished. So at the moment, just so all councils are aware, but I have previously stated this, there is no strategic planning unit. So I have a couple of contractors who are working for council.
You mean internally? No.
There is no council strategic planning team.
All right.
They do the work on the development control plan.
Right.
The contractors are doing some work on the development control plan at my request. They are working through the floodplain risk management study at the moment, seeing how that translates into controls into the DCP. That is quite a significant piece of work that needs to be done. The engineering design manual, which is a piece of work that feeds into the development control plan. We've actually, through engineering services of council, been able to get a contractor or a consultant who's been engaged to undertake that work, which I'm very happy about because it's taken a long time to find someone.
Yeah.
But it's challenging. As the CEO has just said, it's really difficult to get staff, and I'm doing my best to essentially find contractors to do the work that I need to get done.
Thank you. The second question is, has the Open Space Committee completed its review of the draft report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so yes, they met prior to Christmas and they've been working through it, essentially a Teams document in providing comments back to the consultant. However, again, staffing challenges are making it very difficult for our team to deliver.
Okay. Third question. I noticed that there was a meeting in November of the Cross-Border Illegal Waste Dumping Committee, which I hadn't heard of before. Can we get a report from them or is it confidential?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not really sure if the minutes are necessarily confidential. I'll have to take that on notice and come back to you.
Thank you. And the final question, I had a couple of people ring me this afternoon and I know it's not quite related to the last half year. I noticed that there was a section there about tree removal and uplifting. I suppose, tree removal and uplifting, and it was ongoing in particularly in the Yass Valley Way area. I have some concern about it. I have no idea what uplifting means. It could be, that's what, no, but the issue for me at the moment is outside of Hamilton Rise at the moment, trees are being pulled out at the moment, and they're in on the border of the road. I wonder why that's happening.
Through you, Mayor, so I need you to clarify. Do you mean in relation to Hamilton Rise or just generally?
I don't know. No, it's not part of the Hamilton Rise. It's not the other side of the fence.
So you're having your.
They've already knocked down everything. Anyway, it looks like the other end of coming into Yass. What I'm saying is it's on the roadside area.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think it's in relation to Hamilton Rise and would form part of the works that need to be done for the subdivision. I'd suggest that maybe the people who are talking to you give council a call and we can have a look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone happy? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. So we go to 6:15. Class action by Richmond Valley Council. It's a recommendation that the report be noted. Someone like to move? Councillor Reid, Councillor Turner. No discussion? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6:16, the Yass Music Club request for financial support. There is a recommendation, Councillor Jones, moving. Secondly, Councillor Abbey. Any discussion?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think as was pointed out in a recent workshop, staff wouldn't bring this to us if it didn't meet the matrix of what we would normally apply for this kind of grant. And as we're about to refresh this bucket, I think this is a worthy project and recommend a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6:17, federal government funding for Trove. There's a recommendation. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Abbey. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment in the fact that this report clearly demonstrates the importance of history to the nation and to Yass in particular. I'd just like to point out that the Yass District Historical Society played a key role by its strong advocacy in the face of strident opposition from Trove initially and a reputed cost of $100,000 plus to ensure that the Yass Tribune papers 1929 to 1955 were digitised and made available to everyone throughout Australia. So I think that was a major thing that the Historical Society performed in the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Abbey.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just want to make a comment, number of comments that the potential loss of Trove would really be a disaster. I mean, it is really an expression, it is an absolute treasure. And, you know, I think it would reflect really badly, and it's made it much harder and tougher for your researchers, your historians, and just all of us that use public libraries. You know, public libraries are really incredibly important success. I think would be actually a really poor reflection on Australia as a society that we lose such a wonderful archival opportunity and facility. So I really strongly support this recommendation and certainly let us work as effectively as we can with the New South Wales Public Libraries Association to see if we can talk some sense into our federal members and opposition members and state counterparts.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Everyone happy? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6:18, the Subtotal and Steering Committee Annual Report. It's the Tourism Steering Committee, I understand. There is a recommendation. Councillor Turner, moved. Councillor Reid, seconded. Any discussion? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Declare the motion carried. 6/19 summer holiday program overview. Quite a program. There is a recommendation. Councillor Reeve, Councillor Cameron. Any discussion? Comments?
Say the same thing. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to congratulate the Director of Corporate and Community for once again just pulling together the most incredible program, and every holidays it's been so different. It covers so many age groups, it covers so many interests, it gives so many local businesses and other people opportunities to show what they do and to teach what they do to a younger audience. And it's just incredible to have this stuff happening, you know, in the school holidays in this town, and gives people such great opportunities here so they don't have to go onto Canberra and stuff. Keeps the youth sort of busy and occupied, and has really, I've just seen so many people come out of those programs with sparked interests and, you know, ideas about they want to do later in life, and it's just amazing to watch, just to have those opportunities on the table. So congratulations and thank you for all the work and effort that goes into organising such a thing, because I know for myself even organising one workshop is quite a headache, so I'm not sure how you organise like 50 of them at the same time. Just getting people booked in and, you know, and getting feedback afterwards and taking photographs, and that's just a very small part of the experience that our youth get to have, and also as parents to watch. And to have, you know, options available for our youth in the school holidays. So, yeah, thank you very much. Incredible job.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. So that explains why we get emails at 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I must say thank you, but it is a team effort. We have a lot of people pull their weight, whether they're in my department or not. So, thank you.
I just want to add one thing, and that is after 10 years of being on council, I'm not getting the emails and the feedback. There's nothing for youth to do in Yass. So congratulations. Thank you.
I'll put the motion then. All those.
May I just make one comment? Because we've been focusing here on youth. I'd like to congratulate them on behalf of the elder members of the community.
Yes.
Name them.
That's next meeting.
Activities to keep us off the streets.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6:20, the proposed sculpture, Fagan Drive, Bookham. There's a recommendation.
We accept that recommendation.
You, Councillor Abbey. Councillor Potham. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I find the sculpture that is being looked at, I believe it was some sort of model, looked a really sort of interesting sculpture that I think would attract people's attention really well as they go through. They pull over at Bookham and have a bit of a look at what's there. I'd just like to mention that I didn't know anything about Dr. Fagan until I saw at the Yass District Historical Society Museum the current exhibition, Movers and Shakers, which is still open. And there was a statement about him. And when you read it, you were right that he was an incredible sort of guy who worked through the POW camps and probably saved lots and lots of lives. It's very important to highlight the stories that matter to local residents, particularly those in the villages. So I think it's a really worthwhile project.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Further comments?
Just one small
Councillor
comment.
Jones.
I just want to commend the community of Bookham for being so proactive on such a wonderful project which recognises one of their former residents. And I look forward to seeing more of this. I think between this project and what we've just seen at Murray Bateman in terms of the water tank, this is how you get art done. And it's just wonderful to see, and it was fantastic to see the robust comments coming through the Public Art Focus Committee, chaired by our Councillor Potham. And I encourage all communities, particularly Yass, because we don't seem to rally the way the villagers do. They really punch above their weight in terms of getting projects like this off the ground. I'd love to see this kind of project in Yass as well.
Just need some leadership,
Yes.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Cawthon.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to echo both the sentiments of Councillor Cameron and Councillor Jones, but I just wanted to quickly add as well that I completely take my hat off to these guys, as well as the Murray Bateman's Lions Club, because all of these art projects have come from, they've sourced the money themselves. They've not come to us and said, you guys are going to pay for this. They've gone and got the money, they're getting grants and all that sort of stuff. They've only come to us for these approvals, and we've given them, suggestions on signage and all sorts of stuff of sort of what we've had to do. But they're generally, like, these community groups are doing it for themselves, and they're looking for grants, they're looking at how they can do funding, how they can fundraise themselves, and I really commend these groups for just taking responsibility for what they want to see happen and making it happen. It's so much easier than trying to bog it down with putting it through budgets and things over the next 5 years. They're just like, let's just go. And that's fantastic to see. Really exciting.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthon. We all agree. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. We come to now the notice of motion, Yass District Historical Society.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we do have a revised version.
Thank you.
As we say, a lot of history has happened in the last quarter. The view on there. We're taking all this out, right? Yes, yeah. Okay, so the new motion that we have before you is pending the Yass District Historical Society securing an acceptable alternate permanent home for its collection and operation. Council gives in principle support for YDHS to be offered first option of the location of the current library rooms at the back of the Memorial Hall, subject to the rooms being compliant with relevant standards for public use, following the relocation of the new library to the Crago Mill precinct. And this support acknowledges the long tenancy of 40 plus years up to and including 2023 of the Society within the Yass Soldiers Memorial Hall and the important service the Society volunteers provide our community. And two, that Council requests a written report on the risks associated with the Memorial Hall upstairs level, including the former location of the archives collection, be presented to Council, including the load-bearing risks to the structural integrity of the building, asbestos and access issues.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a second? Councillor Abbey. Okay, speakers for the motion? Speakers against the motion?
Just a question, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, question of the mover. It's got there, councillor requests a written report on the risks. Okay, a written report on the risks associated. The written report, does it have to be a previous written report or a current written report? I'm sort of part of the, I asked the question because part of the pressure to move the archives was about the building structural integrity, and I think the people would like to know what was the basis of that decision in terms of any sort of written documentation. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I've asked of our executive is to provide us with the information of why it can't, why anyone can't return into that building. That's my priority of information, why it can't be used going forward. But it would be good to see anything that was provided to our executive team to base their decision on prior to that. But my main focus is on why no one can go back into that now that we've extracted the public use of that building out. But yeah, I take your point. It would be good to know historically what information the original decision was based on.
Thank you.
Because that was at an operational level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ready to vote? I'll I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Okay, Eight one, Soldiers Memorial Hall. There's a question from Councillor Cameron. And we have a written response. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments. The written response is interesting in itself because I think it has done a really good job at avoiding the question that's asked. The question that was asking what discussions had taken place. We had basically requested, in the light of the downstairs rooms at the Soldier Memorial Hall in the front were commercially leased. It was allowed to go that way in comparison to community groups, some who had been involved in the Soldiers Memorial Hall for a long period of time. I think I just want to make a few comments about this whole situation. It hasn't been good and it's been difficult for everyone. I do feel that our problem has been caused to a large extent by the failure to really sort of discuss the issue in depth. And I know that I'll be criticised for that comment because staff will say that there has been discussions, etc., etc. I just think it was unbelievable that after the decision was made by Yass Valley Council to commercially let the space, a building, by the way, built on community donations, that the community groups concerned were not immediately advised of this decision. So we had a situation that for 3 months, both the RSL and the Historical Society were not told that they didn't have that application being successful. I think they started to realise something was afoot when suddenly people were moving into those rooms and sanding the floors and starting to put up signs saying such and such gallery and such and such clothing store. So, and really that written advice to the Historical Society and the local RSL group only happened after the RSL at the Soldiers Memorial Hall Committee expressed their condemnation about the council's failure to advise them of the decision. And I think after that, and after the eviction notice to the Yass District Historical Society, was formal recognition sent to them that they were unsuccessful. I find that sort of, from a business point of view, I find that quite unbelievable. I think the failure by the staff to implement this resolution of council, and it was a resolution of council on October the 27th, has caused great distress to all and created a bit of a firestorm that we perhaps didn't really need at this time. And I think it sort of demonstrates to my mind, and maybe I'm hoping that things are changing in the light of this situation and maybe we can learn from it. It'd be good if we could learn from it. But I think it's, at the time, it demonstrated a really cavalier approach to community engagement. I probably want to ask now that the question that comes out of that is, there's a couple of questions. One is, how can we now be assured that the staff will fully implement decisions of council in the future? You know, basically we hear, we pass things and we assume that in a timely manner that things will be done. Or do we have to revert to requesting updates all the time to make sure things are happening? The second question really is that the ambulance station archives is only for approximately 16 months. It's a temporary fix, which I think is brilliant, and as all parties, I presume, should be congratulated for getting that resolution so quickly and allowing the archives to move to a safe spot. I think I'd like to sort of suggest that we should also now not be thinking that this is the end of the story. I think we should be thinking that the archives are a valuable community resource, that the Historical Society for the last 60 years has looked after, and we should be thinking about where do we head now in regards to supporting and helping in any way possible a move to a more permanent location. And I know we have the old library or the current library as a possibility, but Crago's Mill may be some time off. I just fell down. Okay, I was at a conference on Monday and a woman from the CWA, I think the vice chairperson of it, made the comment that what all rural councils were looking for was a thriving community which is diverse and inclusive. And I think working collaboratively in a positive manner with community groups will ensure that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Potham.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say a couple of words in response to Councillor Cameron. I'd like to first of all congratulate everybody on their hard work for this resolution. Everybody's worked together and it's great that we've got, it's a short-term thing, but I'd also like to go back and also congratulate all the work that our former Director of Infrastructure did for the last 2 years on this exact thing. And I realise, I do agree with you, Councillor Cameron, that there's perhaps been some holes in the communication and the process has gone through, and that's really unfortunate and really hard to hear, that the communication breakdowns and that people don't know. I'd also like to point out though that in saying that, I see that it was acted on, like the people who were awarded the use of those facilities were notified of that. It's just the other people who weren't successful weren't notified. At the same time, to me, there's also a bit of these things go both ways, and I would like to see people, if they haven't heard or they don't know, that they can come and approach us. It's like people sit back and then they're like, oh, you didn't tell us for 3 months. It's like, well, you also didn't come and ask what's happening with that. Can we know? Can we understand? And so to me, the onus goes both ways. And in working with council, to me, it's also about people being able to approach and come and ask, hey, what happened with that? And even us as councillors, I know myself that I go back to the community after meetings, people are asking me what happened with that and why was that? And it's our job as well we all represent different areas and different businesses and age groups and all sorts of things, but I would also think that there's a little bit of onus back on us as councillors to communicate these things in the community. I could be wrong. I thought that was kind of part of our role as well. So to me, it's not about pointing blame at one person. It's to me like everybody's to blame for the communication breakdown. It's not just one person's fault. It's a group kind of thing. And I would like to see better communication coming from everybody, not just one. And that's all. I just wanted to say that it's also, to me, the responsibility of individual community groups, as much as it's our job to support them where we can and help them with grant funding and opportunities and to communicate things that are happening. I think it's also partly their responsibility for their interests to help and kind of meet us halfway with that stuff. So to me, it's about cooperation. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Councillor Potham. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to 8.2. Possible assistance.
Yeah. I think we've
No.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Did we have a recommendation there that the response be noted? Have we moved that?
No.
Does that have to be moved? Sorry.
It's
It's a question and answer.
Just a question.
It's questions on notice, there's a response, that's
Oh, sorry.
that's it. There's no decision to make, not even noting.
You learn something new every day, don't you?
I've said it before, but I think that's the way the template is generated by the software that we use.
Okay.
But they are what they are, just the response, question and the response.
So you've had your question, you've had the response.
All right.
And now we're on to the next one.
8.2?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of comments. As Councillor Reid suggested to me, we have covered some ground with 8.1. I just want to talk, I think Councillor Pothan's talking about communication. It is a two-way process. I don't disagree with that. I think we have got to be more proactive in many sort of situations. I believe that sort of one of our key things that we've done or we've tried to do is to improve communications since this council's been elected. Okay, I've seen it's vital for developing a positive image in regard to this council, and I think the communication in many ways has been really quite excellent. Okay, and I compliment the directors and in particular and the councillors who've been going out to lots and lots of different progress associations and basically letting people be informed about what's happening at council. And particularly the Mayor, Councillor McGrath, has done a great job in helping the image of council improve substantially. So it's a bit sad that a thing like this has happened because in my view, our community groups are the backbone of Yass Valley, and we've got to be really careful with our communication with them. I know we're dealing with the progress associations, etc., but there are a lot of groups within Yass, within the different villages, Red Cross, Rotary, a whole lot of different groups that we need to be keeping an eye on to make sure that things are done in a collaborative and respectful and timely manner. I think the problem really occurred that the eviction notice that was sent to the Historical Society was a very, very blunt instrument. I think it could be charged with a criminal act that's so blunt. And it set up a really negative environment with everyone put into corners, and it took some time. And the meetings after the eviction notice really sort of worked towards a far more positive collaborative approach to getting a solution to what was a very difficult problem. So I think people could be congratulated on that, but I do think we need to be very mindful of what communication goes back to the groups, and that it's timely and to the point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I think it's probably worth observing too that we are very challenged in terms of staffing at the moment, and have been for quite a while, and that sort of has an impact on our ability. I don't know whether you wanted to make a comment, did you, Chris?
No, I think the comments there are certainly when at the time of writing this report, all the engagement that we did have with the Historical Society and local member and the like, and we certainly got a solution, albeit temporary. I do concur that there is a challenge for the Historical Society, and certainly we'll try and provide as much support as we can in terms of finding a more permanent home. So this is not the end of the issue. It's probably in a holding pattern, but we'll need to move on that relatively quickly, because I think a 16-month time frame will come around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Move on to committees. 9.1, the minutes of the Local Emergency Management Committee, Rescue Committee. Recommendation. Councillor Tanner, Councillor Abbey. Any questions? Motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the CRJA board meeting. There is a recommendation.
Just want to point out there's two matters that are arising from those minutes that require a determination. One is the waste and sustainability materials strategy that was prepared by the joint organisation, consistent with the the recommendation that was adopted by Council from the Sustainability Committee for input into these documents, suggesting that that be referred to the committee for their consideration and recommendation to Council. And the second item that came up was membership fees. Just about like everybody else at the moment, fees are going up. So that's a matter that we'll need to incorporate into the 23-24 operational plan.
I'd like to move the recommendation. Councillor Butler. Councillor Wade. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 9.3. Minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. There is a recommendation. Councillor Cameron?
No. Just want to make some comments, if I can.
Wait your turn.
All right, thank you.
Do we have someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Jones?
This is a point of order. We're mentioning that the workshop be held on the 14th of February. Presumably it's already been held.
Yes, correct.
You did have it.
So the wording should really reflect was held as opposed to be held.
I think the time this was written, we hadn't held it. Held a meeting, we did. So it's probably is superfluous at this point in time. You can put a line through it.
Yeah.
It's been action, so you could delete it if you were comfortable with that.
Someone prepared to move the recommendation?
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Reid. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'd just like to have a bit of a discussion about it. The recommendations aren't from the committee itself, which I find is a little bit unusual. The committee is pretty happy with how things are going, and as you pointed out, point 1 in item 4.1 basically says something that's already been held, and also item 4.3 that the council submission on the draft South Eastern Table Route included issues raised by the committee. That's also been done. So what's really there at the moment in my mind is point 2, the draft sustainability policy and sustainability assessment framework for further refined to incorporate the suggestions in this report. Well, I think these suggestions in the report should be really discussed at another meeting. I think what we should be doing now is the recommendation should be that the SAC minutes be noted. I think we should just note the minutes as such. I say that because the draft policy and framework, which is being asked to be looked at again, is an attachment to minutes of its last meeting. And the framework and the policy is up for consideration and discussion, I believe, at the next meeting of council in March. So the recommendation in the papers is not needed because what will come to the March council, I hope, is the full document and people can have a bit of a look at it. The real issue seems to be the financial framework. But we basically do have the terms of reference here. Can I pass those around, please? Next, Mike. The terms of reference basically say, I've only got one there at the moment. Do a few more there? No, you're just taking the one. The terms of reference do say clearly that the financial framework be part of the overall framework. And if I bring people back to, I think it was February or March last year, that terms of reference was passed unanimously. So we basically should consider the whole idea of the financial framework, if we are going to consider it at our meeting of council, and not just let it slide through as has to be changed as we look at the minutes as such. And so I'm saying that the financial implications is part of the Sustainability Advisory Committee terms of reference. So that will determine our discussions in March. And sustainability is really thinking about tomorrow, as it says up there on the board. And I think, as I was mentioning earlier about the finances of neighbouring councils, the sustainability of the finances of any organisation is really got to be sustainable. And I think we've got to be willing to have a look at that so that competing demands can be looked at by the sustainable framework, and we can make our decisions on that. So I'd like you to vote against the current recommendation, and just I'll move a different motion, that recommendation that just that the minutes be noted. A simple one.
Through Mr Mayor, if the mover and the seconder of the motion are happy with that, then that could become a motion.
Happy to withdraw. Councillor Jones and Councillor Roux.
I don't want to, and here's why. We have an already overstretched tax executive sitting up here. If I do anything to add to their workload in terms of briefing, writing reports for a committee to do essentially the job, which is the job of these 9 councillors around this room, I'm doing a disservice. And I say this with so much passion for what your committee does. I'm the former chair of the Sustainable Communities Committee. And we looked at the option of everything, of looking at the sustainability of the economics of council, all of that. We refined it down to just environmental issues, because essentially when we looked at it, it's the task of council. That's our job. If this committee wants to individually make submissions at budget or look at any of our financial documents, they have the capacity. We're a very transparent organisation. But I don't want to do anything to overload this team. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Can I respond? Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, that we're stretched because of staffing shortages and all of that sort of stuff. But the key thing is that this whole thing can be looked at in a council meeting, whether the financial framework should go ahead or not. It shouldn't just slip through on the bottom line of a committee's minutes. That and that's the way I see it at the moment. I think you've got to remember that on the bottom line is the word advisory. We're talking about an advisory committee. So the advisory committee that has 9 excellent people on it who are very skilled in what they do, and I really marvel at what they can do. They are going to provide advice, and they're going to advise on the financial side as well, and I think they can do that quite well. If this council doesn't like what's being stated, just throw it out. It's advice. It's nothing more than that. And that's the way advisory committees were set up, as you know. So I think we should just note the minutes and leave it at that.
Question for our executive. How do you see that playing out? Do you see that as an acceptable thing for us to do right now, or is this information you put into the report there for you?
Mr Mayor, it's up to council. If you want to simply note the minutes, then you can do that. I recognise that we've already dealt with the regional transport plan earlier on, so you can simply note that. That makes some sense. I agree with that, and we've already looked at the workshop, and because that's been held in the past as well, so that makes sense that we don't need to worry about that. In terms of the terms of reference, look, any project that we do needs to examine the financial components of that project, and whether that is sustainable in the sense of how does it fit in with the overall budget of council, and that's a council decision. The way the framework table was was structured was largely the same information that the Office of Local Government sets for us for their oversight and the Audit Office oversight. So again, we don't need a fourth oversight. We've got staff overlooking it, we've got Audit Office, and we've got the Office of Local Government. And council's part of that process in the sense of endorsing plans. So again, the financial sustainability of particular projects, like I think one of the priorities was to offer design assistance on a FOGO scheme. Looking at the financial implications of that, that's certainly within the terms of reference. But the way the strategic framework was, as I said, is something that's already been looked at in that format by other agencies. And there's again, when you've got scarce resources, and even communities of scarce resources, it's volunteer time, regardless of the level of expertise. They're doing this on their own time in many cases. That becomes another burden. And I would have thought that it was identified four projects there. The financial implications of those are well worth having an examination of. And also now we've made a decision earlier tonight to refer the regional waste strategy plan for comment to the committee. There's 5 projects with them, and again, they all have different implications financially, and whether they're sustainable or not, that's something obviously council can consider based on the advice coming from the committee. So I don't have a particular problem if the minutes were simply noted. I'm sure the advisory committee will discuss these issues again and refine their policies and frameworks and report them back to council for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, well, noting the CEO's advice, I'm happy to withdraw the motion in favour of the noting, but I just want the communication to go back to this committee crystal clear that we don't expect them to replicate the job of the Audit and Risk Committee or Deloitte's, because there's only so many hours our volunteers can put in on these committees, and we don't want them doubling up on something that we're not going to pay attention to because we've already got these other streams of oversight. Thank you.
I'm happy to chair.
You happy with that? Okay. So the recommendation is that the report be noted. Okay. You don't want to have another go then?
Might get lynched.
I think you're pretty
No, that not the report, that the minutes be noted.
Minutes be noted.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll put the
You're
motion.
forgiven.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. Right. The traffic, 9-4 minutes of the Traffic Facilities Committee, held on the 1st of February. One might move to seat, Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor Reid. You can ask a question if you.
I'd like to note that we have down here the Yass Remembrance Day road closure, which is fantastic. Those that attended the Remembrance Day observed that it would have been made a better event had we closed the road. So I think that's terrific, and that's in there, ready to go this year.
Not only a better event, I think it would be much more respectful.
Respectful, that's the word I was looking for, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Just to comment while Gabby's got her finger on the edit button. Number 4. All personnel involved must be appropriately accredited. Use appropriately accredited.
That's a spelling correction, isn't it? You're all right on spelling, you're not real good on some, so. Okay, everyone happy? Motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the Yass Soldiers Memorial Hall Advisory Committee.
Yes, I'll move that.
Councillor
I'll second.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Abbey. Any questions, any comments? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Declare the motion carried. 9-6 minutes of the Public Art Focus Group held on the 13th of February. Moved Councillor Houghton, seconded Councillor Reid. Any comments?
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
I'd just like to commend the work of the committee, and wonderful to see the proponents of the Murray Bateman water tank project talk to us. And I did ask the question, would they consider mentoring any other community groups? So I look forward to a chain reaction. Put it that way. I look forward to a chain reaction in Yass. I note that they've asked for consideration, the approach to a public art funding be based on seeking grants and council budget allocations, encouraging communities to raise their own funds for public artworks, and that council consider including public art in any CPA agreements. We have a wonderful opportunity ahead of us. We may not get much of a say in terms of these state significant projects riding across us, whether it be turbines or solar projects or Transgrid. If there is an opportunity to use these VPAs for the benefit of our community, we will be in a strong position to fund these projects that we've never been able to put much of the kitty for, even if it's seed money, so that they can go and try and get a matching grant for. And I'm thinking of groups that may not think they're capable of going for grants for art, such as youth, when you're not part of a formal organisation. However, if there's seed funding for us to say, look, you know, here's $500 to $1,000 to give us your view on Yass in a multimedia thing that we can use to show people what you think. For example, it would be great to have this kind of opportunity, and there will be, if it's a giant solar farm next to Yass, or if it's one on the border. It all has to have VPAs come in through our policy, as we've stated. Also, they're asked for a consideration in the budget of 20 to 25,000, which I look forward to wrestling everyone for when we come down to budget. But just to flag, that's what we're saying. We're not saying we're going to spend that money right now. We're saying we'll consider including that in our budget. That's been something that's come up in the last 10 years that I've been on council, and it's such a tricky thing for us to agree to, especially when you're into budget deficits. But it's good to see that this focus group is putting not just one basket forward, but a whole bunch of options forward as to how we can help our community fund art in the future.
Through Mr Mayor, just an extra comment on the major projects and the voluntary planning agreements for community enhancement funds. One of the terms of reference for all those committees is for the committees to identify the priorities for Yass Valley, and we haven't specified what those priorities are. So certainly if the council reps on those funding committees, when they get up and running, believe that public art is something that should be a priority, they should be adding that into the debate about what the priorities are. So if there's a public art priority in one of the funding programs, well, that'll be a good thing for that particular, to meet that particular requirement.
And through you, Mr Mayor, certainly an exciting prospect if some of these VPA agreements are in place for 20 to 30 years to actually lock in certain things that we agree are priorities, whether it be, waterway restoration, youth projects or public art, as part of that, it gives us a sustainable source to say this is coming up. There'll be a little bit in that bucket each year. Will be a fantastic opportunity for us.
Indeed. Okay, no further discussion, I'll put that motion, all those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. So there's no further business, no confidential matters, thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much, Gary, for getting us up to speed there. I'll declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.